Hey, this is Peter and Adam from Sons of Silver, and you are watching Aftershocks TV.
Yeah.
All right, so Chris, we're going to start with just a couple of updates of something we talked about on our last few episodes.
Yeah.
One of the things we obviously brought up is the festival, Sick New World. We talked about the lineup and how we love that lineup. Well, we've got some news to share on the Sick New World Festival. Yeah. Let's bring this up. It was already here. It is with great disappointment that it will not be taking place this year, 2025. How about that? It's just, I find that kind of interesting just because we had talked about these festivals and how they don't tend to last very long.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are in year 3 of it, and it's already done. Now it says here, for encountered unforeseen circumstances, which as we know means they're not selling tickets.
Yeah.
So now I did, just looking into it a little bit, there's whether it's true or not, obviously, I don't think they've confirmed this, but the word out there is that pretty much the reason why is the headliners, right? The 2 main headliners, Metallica and Linkin Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're supposedly guaranteed $5 million each for their appearance.
Ridiculous.
Now, how again? If you look at the previous 2 years of Sick New World, who was the main headliner? It was the same band as System of a Down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically a band that hasn't put out new music in God knows how long.
Sure.
And they still tour every summer, but it's just basically a nostalgic band playing their old songs. Of course, you're gonna have to pay a lot less to get that than you're gonna have to pay to get 2 mega band. And what did we talk about? We talked about that other festival, Psycho Vegas. Right, that started out as a nice, intimate, underground rock and metal festival with a lot of stoner, doom, and psych bands.
Sure.
They decided to up their game. Got Megadeth, got Alice Cooper. Once they did that, Danzig, I think, was there as well. And once they did that, the last year they did it, they were done as well. So it just seems to me a lot of these festivals, are just not really learning their lesson. I mean, if that is the case, if they did indeed, agree to pay those bands $5 million each. I mean, this day and age, I mean, you cannot recoup that and have that size of a festival, I think, anyway, go ahead and give me your thing on this.
First and foremost, with Sick New World, it didn't get the best reviews last time. Forget the music of it. Mm-hmm. It didn't get the best reviews of the environment. Mm-hmm. It had a lot of it was very hot. There was a lot of people passing out from the heat. They couldn't get water. There was a lot of that was thrown around about Sick New World. So to go back to it again is, a second time, especially if you were one of those that left, before you saw your favorite band because it was that or die.
Yeah.
If you're one of those, are you going to go back? No, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. The $10 million for the 2 bands, that's ridiculous for any festival. Sorry. Metallica's too big to headline these festivals. I know Wimmer finds a way to do it. That's great. But $5 million for Metallica that's on, year 3 of the same tour?
I know.
They've played everywhere. Everybody that's wanted to see Metallica has seen them.
Exactly.
So they're not going to be... The first year of 72 seasons, this would have worked. Because everybody would have been hyped up to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody... Hell, I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get me to go out of my house if they play in my backyard. But I drove to Detroit to go see Metallica. There's nobody that's going to do that for this. And... Not for nothing, but Linkin Park ain't Linkin Park.
No, it's not.
It's not. And the hardcores, the super hardcores are going to go because they want to see Mike Shinoda play. Fair enough. But that is not the average audience.
No.
The average audience wants to hear Chester Bennington, and they're not adapted to. Think about it. For all the hype that we heard when the Linkin Park did the surprise concert and the single that came out, it's a good single. I like the song. What have you heard in the last 30 days about Linkin Park? Not a damn thing.
Nope. There was a couple of things too here. I want to bring up too. Exactly. Yeah. For one, like you said, I mean, Metallica, now Sick New World, as we were talking about, it's based, like it says even down here, right? It's a cultural celebration of hard rock, goth, alternative, and heavy music.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I understand that Metallica in the 90s, the late 90s, were hard rock, but everyone knows Metallica as a fucking thrash metal
Right.
band.
Mm-hmm.
So that is not going to draw this. Exactly. I mean, you can't just go, oh, we get Metallica, everyone's going to show up. And you just made a great point about Linkin Park. It's not really Linkin Park. I mean, they haven't even toured yet to see what like they can draw, and you're going to invite them to this. I mean, when you think of goth, alternative, and heavy music, I just don't think when you saw the bands that were on that list, like we talked about a band like Acid Bath. Okay, now you're talking about those sort of bands. Yes. Okay, people are now if you're going to mix in Metallica with that, that's not, you said it. If anything, people might say, nah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to see it. I don't want to go there with all these fucking Metallica fans in Linkin Park.
Right.
Again, you're talking about radio rock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where before those other bands that are on the list they're not necessarily radio rock bands.
Sure. The other thing that is I think is a real issue, and I could be wrong on this, but I tell me if you think I'm right on this. The bands they had are for older people. And older people do not want to go through 3 days and 93 bands.
No. No. Here's the difference. Remember, that's the other thing. This is a one-day festival.
Well, so even that's even worse.
But even that's even worse. Exactly. At least 3 days, you could spread it out and go, you know what? Who's playing on that day? I'll go that.
Yeah, I'll go at 6 o'clock or whatever.
Exactly. And so, but when you cram it into one day and everyone's going, well, am I going to go and see this band for 15 to 20 minutes if I really want to see them? I mean, even the Acid Bad thing, it's like, you got to see it for 20 minutes. Now think about that too. It's like so. Let's switch because you mentioned the name before, Danny Wimmer. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at this, okay, so we're just going to take Acid Bath. Now, Acid Bath was not only supposed to play at Signal World, but they are also scheduled to play right by you there in Columbus, Ohio, at Sonic Temple. Mm-hmm. Okay, again, Danny Wimmer does Sonic Temple. Okay, now Sonic Temple is less than a month after this festival. Right. Now, are you going to go? And if you look at Sonic Temple, it's kind of like the Aftershock Festival out here. It's got a similar sort of lineup. It's got everybody where it's got multiple days where you can go, okay, pick to see what bands you want to see. Maybe, go on one of the days, go for the day. Not all you have to go for all 3 days. So you got now a month. They're both between a month. Okay. Mm-hmm. A lot of the same bands are playing. I believe Linkin Park's playing Sonic Temple as well. So a lot of the bands are the same bands that are playing Signal World are playing Sonic Temple. So when you look at those and you say, all right, I'm going to travel out of town, right? Now, yes, Vegas is a good destination city, but like we've said, in April, May, it's fucking hot.
Yeah.
In Columbus, Ohio, it's not that hot. It's still spring. It's just started spring. Well, May, so it's in May.
It's so 75 degrees is what
perfect,
it is. Yeah.
Right? It's probably the perfect time of year for that. So you got better weather. And you've got just, a bigger, like you said, the reviews here of the field and everything wasn't really the best. It wasn't the best reviews. Mm-hmm. You've got now Sonic Temple's got a better venue. It's got multiple days. It's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper than Vegas, Ohio.
And it's also been done for 10 and 11 years or whatever it is, or maybe even more at this point. Mm-hmm. A lot of experience. Everybody that works it knows what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been to it back when it was called Rock on the Range. I went to it 3 or 4 different years, and it's a comfortable situation. I mean, the setting itself is a stadium, like at a football stadium.
Okay.
But with no seat. I mean, there's seats, but there's no seating. Like you're not in row X, seat 12 and 13. It's all GA.
Oh, so, it is. Okay, wow.
So you go down. What everybody does is they go down and they fight their way up front for the bands they want to see.
Yes.
I did that. When I went, I wanted to see Seven Dust more than pretty much any, and I wanted to see Hailstorm. Those were the 2 bands that I went that I really wanted to see. And I fought my way down, and and I saw those 2 bands from 10 feet away. And then when Bullet for My Valentine or other bands that I don't care about came on, I was up in the chairs, sitting around, drinking a beer, relaxing, watching what was going on. Mm-hmm. That was a comfortable environment. This, where it's 12 hours, 14 hours on your feet on either asphalt or in a field, no thank you.
I know. Not like you said, not comfortable, and you got old people that are going to go see this.
Yeah.
This isn't a young people's festival. And one of the things that's going to really, it's going to really suck for a lot of bands is a lot of bands, people, I don't think a lot of people understand, they plan their touring schedule around an event like this, because it anchors the budget and the logistics for these bands. So get ready to see a lot of tours now that were built around. It's like, I think, what do you call it, was supposed to do some shows, Tomahawk. Because that's how I first heard of this, was Trevor Dunn, the guitarist, came out and said in an interview, and it's like, I don't think I'm supposed to say this, but that ain't happening. And then a few days later is when it came out. But he broke basically the news of it not happening. So I mean, it's like I said, so a lot of these tours like that one are going to get canceled now. You know. It's another question I just had, just really quickly, after I saw this get canceled, because we were talking about how we were really happy that it was a non-Danny Wimmer production, thing. It's interesting, I went and looked and researched of how many of Danny Wimmer's festivals have gotten canceled. Okay.
Is it a lot or none?
Like the only ones that have ever gotten canceled. I think the one was Louder Than Live. I think it was one of the ones he did
this last year with the
Louder Than Life. Yes, in New York
with the tornado or whatever.
Because of the tornado, and the only other one was, I think, Sonic Temple in 2020 because of COVID.
Right.
That is it.
Yeah, his stuff hammers.
Now I wonder if it hammers, or just because he's basically the establishment guy. I mean, is he just, he's got people aren't going to let, the powers that be will not let his ones get canceled. Let's put it that way.
He's built an organization. I mean, that's it. He's the Bill Graham of today.
Yes, he really is.
Or pick another name, but Bill Graham is the one I think most people know. He's the Bill Graham of the 2020s. He puts it together. It happens. He's the guy that if they ever tried to do Live Aid, another Live Aid or something, he'd be the guy that would have to arrange it because he's good. And everybody else, look, we've seen how many of these festivals that come up and go down, 10, there's so many of them that happen. And it's because the people get greedy and they think that, well, I like this band, so I'm going to bring them in. I'm going to pay anything to get them here. And then what happens? And it falls apart. They had one here, the Live in Lima or something, Loud in Lima or something.
Okay.
Where they paid a bunch of bands that did not deserve to get paid what they were getting paid. They paid Vince Neil like $200,000 or something.
Wow.
For Vince Neil, not Motley Crue, Vince Neil. And guess what? That got canceled. I know this is kind of a fork in the road here, but it sort of relates to this. I don't know if you saw the news. I don't know if it broke today or yesterday, but that the people that have been running Rocklahoma into the ground departed, and they brought the old guys back.
Well, it was Danny Wimmer that owned it.
Yeah.
He was running it. He was running the ground, and then now they brought the old people back.
They brought the old people back and
save it. Yeah.
And you're going to have, that the next one is going to be full of Warrant and Winger and Icon and Vane. But so what? That's what that was built on.
Totally. Well, that's my question now too. Is so Sick New World it's a purely 90s and early 2000s festival, right? I don't think that generation of rock and metal is big enough to have a resurgence the same way. You think it's big enough to have the same resurgence it did in the 80s and 70s?
I do. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of those bands that will stun you when you hear about them playing stadiums.
Well, hold on. I'm talking about a festival here.
No, I know that. But what I'm saying is if individual bands can play a stadium, if Green Day and My Chemical Romance can play stadiums, there's enough interest to get a festival together.
Okay, I guess what I'm talking about, maybe I got to be more specific. I'm not going to really talk about Green Day or like a Pearl Jam type of thing. I mean, of course, if you put something like that, that will definitely, I mean, no doubt that will sell. But Sick New World, if you looked at those bands, they didn't really have a ton of those bands.
No, they didn't.
I mean, System of a Down was their biggest thing, that they had an Incubus. Bands like, they had a couple of those bands.
Well,
I remember
Sick New World went into a weird place this time with the bands. I like the lineup personally, but they're two iterations away from having Dog Fashion Disco and Mindless Self-Indulgence as headliners. I mean, they're they were going in that path of the weird bands. And the weird bands, the reason they were one of the features of those weird bands was that they didn't sell tickets. That's not to be an insult.
No.
Acid Bath, who we both love, they have never sold tickets.
No. Well, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, some of these guys. I don't know if you've seen some of these comments we've gotten on the video in our video. There's a lot of comments of these guys, like in shock that we're shocked that there's this huge demand for an Acid Bath reunion. It's like how long you guys been following me? It's like, dude, we've been doing this for 30 years. Trust me. Yeah. All right, Acid Bath is not a household fucking name.
No, not at all.
These guys don't get it, but some of those fans are just they're protective of that.
They
band,
can protect all they want.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this: there was a promoter here in Cleveland. His name is Mitch Karszewski. He and I shared an office together when he was a booker, when he was a promoter. He did his thing, and I had my little music magazine. But I heard every single call that this guy did, and I went to damn near every show that he put on. And one of his mainstays that he would bring through Cleveland was Acid Bath in 94, 95, 96, whatever year that would have been in that era. And I can tell you, I saw Acid Bath several times, and I never saw him in anything bigger than a small club.
Thank you.
Ever.
Thank you. I've been trying to tell people this. They were not a huge band. They've developed a bigger following over the years, like most bands. Of course. And they are a great band. Because they went away, exactly. And we know that helps a lot of times with bands like that and so forth. But yeah.
I had an interest in music always.
It's always kind of been around me some way, shape, or form.
5 minutes sitting on a drum set, man, change your life.
This is the same black guitar that Marty McFly plays in Back to the Future.
I love the feeling I get in front of the freaking full stack here, just the vibration or something to it.
I'm lucky because I do have a little bit of a tap into the Fu Manchu lore, into the Nebula lore.
In order to keep things going, you kind of have to start playing the game a little bit, like the business game.
Everybody has to get through a day-to-day, and how do you exist and how do you get by?
As far as getting people to commit to bands, it's tough to keep a lot together these days, for sure.
Still sleeping on people's floor, that's still a reality.
Probably also playing with some of the best people I've ever played with. The creative juices don't stop. It just keeps going.
For me, it's just finding a balance of how much time I'm spending with my family versus how much time I'm spending working.
It's this validation that what you're doing actually has merit.
Obviously, we're a little long in the tooth, and we've been doing this for a minute, and now we can kind of do what we want. We don't need a record company. I'll do it myself. I'll do it the way I want to.
Just always be cool. Just be respectful. Those are your people. They're connecting to you on some level, even if they don't look like you.
It's got to happen, or else I'll go crazy. Go crazy one way or another, I might as well, not go crazy if I can play music.
Maybe one day I'll have a Porsche, but until that day, I'll drive a Chevy.
There you go.
All right.